Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York. Today we're going to have our live where I will be sharing with you the most recent immigration news. Specifically, I'll be talking about a shocking report coming from Brooklyn Law School Clinic with regard to New York Asylum Office. USCIS error that could have affected your case. And in the end, of course, as always, I will answer some of you guys' questions. So please join, say hello, let me know where you're watching from. Do not forget to type up your questions, type them up in the chat so I can refer to them and read them out loud and answer them, of course, after the presentation. Also, do not forget to like and share the stream so more people are going to have an opportunity to get this information and join us. And we are going to start. So first of all, thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for liking and sharing. It helps my videos to become more popular, more available to others, and it helps other people to learn this information, the information that I'll be sharing with you today. Some of it, as I said, is shocking. I cannot really describe it otherwise. And many of you who are in asylum pending status around the country, specifically in New York, this report affects New York specifically, will probably be interested in finding out as to what's going on in New York Asylum Office. Also, many of you were referred from New York Asylum Office to immigration courts, and this report basically is going to answer your question as to why. Especially when you felt that everything went fantastic, you had a strong case, but why? Why did you get that referral? So we're going to discuss it today. And first, I'm going to talk to you and share with you news about USCIS error that could have affected your case. Basically, what's been happening is that USCIS was incorrectly coding advanced parole applications for some of you. And as a result, you could have received an advance parole approval notice with the incorrect code. It's important for those of you who would try to use that notice, guys, because at the border, a CBP officer may be extremely confused as to what's going on, maybe even looking for some signs of fraud or something. Why? What happened is that USCIS was coding certain advanced parole applications that were filed under I-45 employment-based case as TPS advanced parole. TPS advanced parole is very different from other advanced paroles. You may know if you've been watching my videos that TPS advanced parole, once you travel on that and you come back, allows you to hop back into basically legal status, if I had to describe it better, and allows you later to file for adjustment of status, right? But regular advanced parole is different. It's considered not to be a departure. It allows you to visit somebody, maybe do something outside of the United States, and not to lose your pending I-45. So somehow this error got into the USCIS system. It affected many cases. So if you receive a message saying that your I-131 case was reopened, do not be upset. Basically, USCIS is trying to fix that error. You go to your USCIS account. If you do have I-45 pending, advanced parole pending, check what's going on with that. Ask your attorney if you have to worry about anything. The main thing is do not travel unless your attorney confirms that your advanced parole is correct. Extremely, extremely important. But as you see, USCIS makes mistakes. They do make mistakes more often than you would think. They may approve a case that otherwise is not approvable in this, by error. Sometimes they incorrectly state your gender, and if this is one of your problems, let me know. I did have a client who had a different gender mentioned on their green card, and the client was very concerned that they will not be allowed back into the country. Everything was fine, and I don't even think CBP officer realized that there was an error. but it's interesting to see how many actual mistakes are happening on the documents, misspellings, and now there is this coding error, of course, as a point of concern. Now I'm going to go back to my first announcement about the report from Brooklyn Law Legal Clinic with regard to Asylum Office. If the data in this report is accurate, and I think it is, this report is of great concern because it shows that, unfortunately, when you are referred, when you are placed in or choose to go through affirmative asylum system, you will not get justice. And I'm going to tell you why. So here is the report, right, that was recently published by AILA. AILA is American Immigration Lawyers Association. It was coming from, the report comes from Brooklyn Law School. It's posted in AILA, on AILA website on November 22nd, 2023. Today is November 25th, 2023. And this report, guys, is very upsetting. Basically, the findings of this report state that, executive summary, here it is. The findings of this report state that New York Asylum Office grants asylum at one of the lowest, if not lowest, rates in the country, significantly lower than asylum offices in Texas and Florida. According to the Freedom of Information Act and other publicly available data, for fiscal year of 2020, New York Asylum Office granted, and here you can tell me how many percentages you think they granted, only 5% of applicants, referring most other asylum seekers to removal proceedings. Only 5%. For the years of 2021 and 2022, the numbers respectively were 6% and 7%. 6% and 7% in 2022, guys. The findings of this report are the following. The New York Asylum Office reject asylum seekers with valid asylum claims just to save their own time. Just to save their own time. They do not care about your time. They're doing it to save their own time. If this report is correct, it further specifies that the students of this clinic interviewed former asylum officers. They interviewed a former judge. They filed Freedom of Information Act request and found that USCIS asylum officers are working under a lot of pressure to process cases fast. And as a result of that pressure, they reject valid cases, sending them to court for the courts to deal with that. That's why our courts have, 2.5 million cases? Cases that should never have been referred to court, could have easily been resolved at the level of affirmative asylum interview, but were not. I think it's an extremely important information, especially for those of you who are recently referred. And I'm sure you probably thought, oh my God, my lawyer made a mistake. I made a mistake. The case is not that strong. I shouldn't have filed it. But guess what? Perhaps sometimes this is the case. But you cannot have 95% referral rate to court, where judges afterwards grant about 70% of the cases and say that everything is all right at the affirmative asylum level. Interestingly enough, I did have several cases granted for this past fiscal years affirmatively. Many cases were simply not called for the interview. So I did suspect something like this going on for a while when I see that cases which I believe should have been granted. And of course, I'm not saying that I know the law better than the judge or officer, absolutely not. From my limited perspectives of practicing law for about 15 to 16 years in the United States, I would judge and say that the case is a strong case based on all the research I've done and everything. And sometimes, very often, I would be surprised that the case would be referred to court nevertheless. And now we know the reason. The reason is very simple. This is something that I've been telling my clients, which I suspected a long time ago, that it's basically simply because they do not want to deal with you. They do not want to deal with you and then refer you to court. So now imagine you, a person who is waiting for asylum affirmative interview, sometimes for 7 years, you're being bounced back into the system of immigration court, where you're going to wait for another 3, 4, 7 years to go through the system for no other reason, just because USCIS asylum officers don't have time for you. Because they admit that granting the case is much more time consuming than referring it. For me, as a practitioner, as somebody who is passionate about helping people, this is very upsetting. I'm sure it's going to be very upsetting for you, especially if you one of those people who unfortunately got referred recently and you were pulling your hairs out trying to understand what happened, where did you make this mistake, what went wrong. So I just wanted to show you this report. And of course, if you're somebody who is active in the community, if you're somebody who is active when the time comes for elections and you do speak with your elected representatives, you may want to address that. You may want to address it just like I'm sure I'll be doing, addressing it with liaisons, addressing it with the elected representatives to see how we can all make sure that people don't waste the half of their life waiting for asylum case to be decided just because the government says they do not have time. And now if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Let's see. Hi, Shabir. Hi, Rajib. Hi, James from Kansas City. Nice to see you. Hi, Dita. All right. Hi, Alena. When do you think I can expect a VAWA decision if I applied in August 2022? I know no one knows for sure, but the processing time isn't getting longer on USCIS. Guys, don't look at those processing times on USCIS website. I honestly think it's not a good idea. It's only good idea if you're going to try to sue them in court to use those processing times. They're useless. Useless for your case. Useless for you. You keep opening up those processing times and thinking that your life is going to change. It's not. If I had to estimate when you're going to get a decision, I would say within the next 6 months about, okay? And of course, it depends on request for more evidence and other factors, but usually within a year and a half, 2 years, you get your decision. Hi, Aline. Hi, Shabir. I would like to know about the Texas immigration law. I have a U visa pending. Does it affect me? Well, I'm not sure if he signed that law, the governor signed that law into the, if it actually became the law. I think you're referring to CB.4. Will it affect you? Well, technically, you do not have a status, right? If you're waiting for the U visa petition. Honestly, I don't think that people who are waiting for some status should be worried about, but I do not know. What happens is this. Do you remember a couple of months ago, we all were discussing Florida immigration law. And many people even moved out of the state of Florida worrying about as to what's going to happen to them. But clients report that actually nothing happens to them. So there is a component of any law as a deterrence. The Texas law is aiming at people who would like to come to the to Texas illegally. And I think that law is designed to scare those people not to come, to scare people not to help them come. That's what it is for, all right? How, if it actually becomes the law, it will be implemented, I do not know. Maybe it will be the Florida thing where nothing actually happens to you, but I do not know, guys. There are a lot of instances in the United States immigration laws where the law is very scary if you read it, but it's not being used. For example, federal law prohibiting illegal entry to the United States or attempt to entry. It's a misdemeanor, can be a felony. However, it is used very rarely against someone who's actually crossing the border. It's never used against asylum seekers. So that's one of the examples. Another example, if you work without authorization after you file for asylum, you may not be able to get adjustment of status granted. I actually never saw officers using that, ever. Never saw officers using that bar. There is another provision. Somebody who broke a marriage in the United States is not entitled to citizenship. Have you ever heard of anyone being denied citizenship because they dated a married man or woman? I have not. So this is just examples that are on the surface of my brain. But honestly, I think you are safe for now. What's going to happen? I guess we're going to find out as soon as the law becomes the law for sure, and as soon as they're going to start implementing it. Hi, Obin from Dubai. Nice to hear from you. Dubai, I guess it's probably late there. Hi, Fabian. Welcome, Corpse. Yes, I do not have, unfortunately, any updates regarding Welcome Corpse. I know that the government was planning on implementing the second stage of the program, where you can invite whoever you want, but never received an update on that. I think, like with everything else, we're going to see some delays there. Hi, Ali. Any update about undocumented immigration plans? Nothing solid that you will be able to rely on or apply for. Different proposals have been, shuffling around, but nothing that became the law, basically, that you can really use. Hi, Isa. Why is it so easy for homosexuals to get visas to the United States and so hard for ministers and NGO volunteers to get one? I don't think this is the accurate statement at all. I think LGBT plus community does not have any privileges. That's for sure. I'm going to tell you that they do not. And NGO volunteers, I think NGO volunteers get visas pretty easily, guys, if they work with the international organizations. And who else you mentioned? Ministers. That's a religious visa. I also have a lot of successful applications. So I think it's more about the quality of the application. It has nothing to do with a specific group, okay? I think it's the quality of the applications. If you do spend time on the research, a little bit of money on a good lawyer, you're perhaps going to see a better result, but it has nothing to do with the singling out of a particular group. Hi, Shop, sir. Are there any updates on dole waiting times? I have no updates on dole waiting times. This is not something that I would spend my time searching for. On a Saturday afternoon, I'll be completely honest with you. To have no updates, I think you can get some, some, how to say, idea as to how long anything can be lasting from AILA, American Immigration Lawyers Association. And they did discuss that the waiting times, unfortunately, are extra long these days, but specifically how long, I will not be able to advise you, unfortunately. So if you guys more questions, if you have more questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer them. So now, by the way, if you do have affirmative asylum application, what I would advise you to do is to not just sit on it and wait for your interview. Make sure, excuse me, that you do prepare your application well and review it at least once a year. If you filed it before 2018, you're probably going to be called for the interview soon, and you want to make sure that you have updated statement. You want to make sure that you have updated countries report, country conditions report. And by the way, on my website, shautsova.com, I do have good articles, country conditions research on various topics from various countries. So it makes it very easy for you to click those links, follow them, and find the articles, find the information that you need, if it's, of course, if it relates to your case. Country conditions reports, witnesses statements. If you're saying that it's still unsafe for you to return to your home country, do you think you may have a witness who can confirm that? A family member, a friend, somebody who can confirm that you've been a subject of recent threats or searches. It's very important, all right? So please keep that in mind, that you have to always make sure that your case is up to date and updated. Extremely, extremely important. Country conditions change a lot in various countries. Also keep that in mind. Prepare very well for your affirmative asylum interview, even knowing that you have a 95% chance of referral to court. Very sad, 95% chance of referral. Almost feels like you don't even want to try, right? When you hear these numbers. Well, guys, listen, thank you very much for joining me this Saturday afternoon. I do appreciate your time that you invest into my social media, communications, support. It's extremely important to me. I would like to thank you all for that. Do not forget to keep in touch. Do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook. I will see you next week, and I hope you're going to have a restful Sunday.